Victor races to find a world-class surgeon as Nikki's life-changing condition worsens. Meanwhile, Diane falls deeper under Dr. Markham's manipulation, Jack risks everything to save her, and Patty's dangerous obsession pushes the Abbott family toward another explosive showdown. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. After watching these videos, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Young and the Restless recap for Thursday, June 25th. Victor searches for a top surgeon as Diane faces her worst fear. Thursday's episode of The Young and the Restless delivered emotional twists on every front. While Nikki Newman's health continued to decline, Victor Newman raced against time to locate a world-class surgeon capable of saving her eyesight. Elsewhere, Diane Jenkins Abbott found herself emotionally manipulated by Dr. Markham, who deepened her fears by convincing her that Jack had already chosen Patty Williams over her. Meanwhile, Jack risked everything in a desperate attempt to rescue Diane, using Patty's obsession with him as a temporary distraction before making his escape. Diane struggles with heartbreak. At Dr. Markham's secluded house, Diane sat alone, quietly turning her wedding ring and wiping tears from her face. Painful memories of discovering Jack in bed with Patty aboard the yacht continued to haunt her, leaving her emotionally shattered. When Dr. Markham entered the room, he immediately noticed her distress and asked how she was feeling. Diane admitted that the emotional strain from their first therapy session had left her exhausted. Rather than offering balanced guidance, Dr. Markham reinforced her despair, insisting that Jack's betrayal had reopened old wounds and forced her to relive every painful emotion. Diane wondered whether she would ever truly recover from such trauma. Dr. Markham responded that healing required time and patience, assuring her that he intended to guide her throughout the process. Grateful for what she believed was genuine support, Diane thanked him. The doctor expressed satisfaction that Diane was beginning to trust him. According to him, they would likely be working together for quite some time before she could fully recover. Diane explained that therapy wasn't unfamiliar territory. Having gone through counseling before, she believed she could recognize genuine progress and felt she had already begun moving in the right direction. Dr. Markham quickly challenged that optimism. He reminded her that recovery rarely followed a straight path, describing therapy as a process that often involved taking one step forward followed by 2 steps backward. Although he acknowledged that she seemed more comfortable with him, he insisted there was still considerable work ahead. Diane pleads for medication. Still emotionally drained, Diane admitted she wasn't ready to completely give up on Jack. She hoped that after getting some sleep she might think more clearly and asked whether Dr. Markham would prescribe medication to help her rest. She explained that her inability to sleep was making every aspect of her emotional recovery even harder. Instead of agreeing, Dr. Markham questioned her sleeping habits. Diane revealed that ever since catching Jack with Patty on the yacht, she had struggled to fall asleep. Even when she managed to drift off, terrifying nightmares constantly interrupted her rest. Her worst recurring dream involved Patty taking over her life, moving into the Abbott mansion and replacing her as Jack's wife. Although Diane insisted prescription medication was the only thing that had ever helped her in similar situations, Dr. Markham refused. He preferred to begin with natural remedies rather than stronger medications. Diane became increasingly frustrated. She argued she had already tried those alternatives and knew they wouldn't work. The doctor remained unmoved. Since she had already been suffering from sleeplessness for weeks, he believed waiting a little longer wouldn't make much difference. His refusal only intensified Diane's anxiety. She argued that participating in emotionally demanding therapy while constantly exhausted was becoming unbearable. Rather than reconsidering, Dr. Markham suggested her insomnia might actually be a symptom of clinical depression. Diane angrily demanded to know why he wouldn't simply prescribe the medication she needed. Instead of addressing her request, Dr. Markham redirected the discussion toward Jack. He observed that Jack hadn't come looking for her and implied that Diane probably felt abandoned. According to him, Jack had already replaced her emotionally, and perhaps her fears weren't unfounded after all. Jack and Billy discussed their next move. Meanwhile, at the Abbott mansion, Billy Abbott found Jack searching for answers about Diane's disappearance. Billy asked whether Jack had uncovered any new leads. Jack explained that he had finally met Dr. Markham, expecting him to be Diane's therapist. However, the meeting had raised more questions than answers. Billy suggested continuing the discussion somewhere outside the house, but Jack pointed out that Patty had gone shopping, giving them a rare opportunity to speak privately. Jack admitted that despite confronting Dr. Markham, he still hadn't learned the identity of Diane's real physician. Fortunately, Kyle had secretly followed Markham after the meeting. Jack revealed Kyle's plan to search Dr. Markham's home for evidence that might reveal Diane's location. Billy immediately objected, recognizing that such a plan would involve breaking into someone's property. Although Jack admitted the idea originated with Kyle, Billy insisted it remained a terrible decision regardless of whose idea it was. He argued they should rely on the police rather than taking matters into their own hands. Billy also questioned why Jack couldn't simply use the private investigator he'd already hired. Jack explained that asking the investigator to commit a crime wasn't an option. Billy couldn't understand why Jack thought it was somehow more acceptable for either himself or Kyle to break the law. He also warned that anyone willing to work alongside Patty Williams was almost certainly dangerous. Jack understood the risk but refused to back down. Diane's life could be in danger, and he wasn't willing to leave anything to chance. Although Billy continued disagreeing with the plan, he admitted that in the past he probably would have joined Jack without hesitation. Now, however, his priorities had changed. He had Sally and their growing family to think about. Before leaving for Sally's doctor's appointment, Billy urged Jack to stay safe. Patty makes another threat. No sooner had Billy left than Patty unexpectedly appeared. Smiling confidently, she teased Jack by asking whether he'd been behaving himself while she was away shopping. Jack played along, saying he'd been eagerly awaiting her return. Patty wanted to know what he and Billy had been discussing. Jack admitted they had been talking about Diane. Clearly irritated, Patty complained that Jack still couldn't let his wife go. She confessed she was growing impatient waiting for Jack to open his heart to her. Then she delivered a chilling warning. If Jack continued wasting her time by holding on to Diane, Patty hinted that Diane herself could become collateral damage. Jack immediately warned Patty that if Diane were harmed in any way, he would make sure she regretted it forever. Instead of frightening Patty, his protective anger excited her. She grabbed Jack by the collar, wrapped her arms around him, and flirtatiously suggested giving him a private fashion show. Jack made it clear that while Patty enjoyed these emotional games, he certainly did not. Patty apologized but admitted she fully intended to use Diane as leverage for as long as Jack continued loving his wife. She suggested Jack should distract her from having dangerous thoughts. Recognizing the threat hidden beneath her words, Jack made a quick decision. He suddenly grabbed Patty and kissed her passionately. Jack uses Patty's obsession to escape. Patty enthusiastically returned the kiss, delighted by Jack's unexpected behavior. She even commented that his passion reminded her of the night they had spent together on the yacht. Jack continued pretending to reciprocate her feelings, even biting her lip as they kissed. Thrilled by the encounter, Patty proposed celebrating with drinks. Jack encouraged her to prepare them. The moment Patty disappeared to the kitchen, Jack seized the opportunity. Without wasting a second, he slipped out the front door and escaped. It didn't take Patty long to realize she had been tricked. Furious, she immediately phoned Dr. Markham. When he answered, explaining he was currently with a patient, Patty warned that Jack had probably figured something out and might already be on his way. Victor reveals Nikki's condition. At the Newman Ranch, Victor Newman anxiously waited for medical advice. He left a voicemail for Nate Hastings requesting an urgent callback. Nick Newman soon arrived, initially intending to complain about Matt's involvement with Noah and the Shadow Room. However, he immediately sensed something was wrong. Victor asked whether Nick had spoken recently with Nikki or Victoria. Nick admitted he had only exchanged text messages with them. Victor then revealed the devastating news. Claire had informed him that Nikki was suffering from a dangerous mass pressing against her optic nerve. Without immediate treatment, she faced the terrifying possibility of permanent blindness. Nick struggled to process what he was hearing. He remembered Nikki mentioning headaches but never imagined the problem was this serious. Victor admitted Nikki had minimized the symptoms with him as well. Nikki's symptoms worsen. Inside Nikki's hospital room, Victoria remained at her mother's bedside. She gently asked whether Nikki's pain medication had helped. Nikki admitted the pain remained intense. She also explained that previous episodes of blurry vision had always passed quickly. This time, however, her vision continued deteriorating. Victoria tried reassuring her by suggesting stress could be making everything feel worse. Nikki rejected that explanation. She admitted she was genuinely frightened because both the pain and her eyesight were worsening rapidly. Concerned, Victoria hurried out to find a doctor. When she returned, she stayed beside Nikki, offering water and comfort. Nikki simply wanted her daughter nearby. She worried that delaying medical treatment might have permanently damaged her vision. Victoria insisted it was time to bring Victor fully into the situation. Moments later, Dr. Nowling arrived. After hearing Nikki describe unbearable pain behind her eyes along with increasingly dark and blurry vision, he reached a difficult conclusion. The surgery needed to happen immediately. Unfortunately, no surgeon currently working at the hospital possessed the specialized experience required for such a delicate operation. Their only realistic option was finding an expert outside Genoa City. Victoria immediately left to begin arranging help while Nikki cried out in pain. Victor takes control. Back at the Newman Ranch, Victor received Victoria's urgent phone call. She explained that Nikki required emergency surgery but that no qualified specialist was available locally. Victor assured her he would personally handle the situation. After ending the call, he instructed Nick to go directly to the hospital and remain with Nikki and Victoria while he searched for the best surgeon available. Victor wasted no time making additional calls. This time Nate answered. Victor asked whether Nate had heard about Nikki's diagnosis. Nate confirmed he was already aware. Victor then asked specifically about Dr. Virginia Nottingham. Since Stephanie knew the surgeon professionally, Nate handed her the phone. Victor briefly outlined Nikki's condition before asking Stephanie whether Dr. Nottingham truly was the right choice. Stephanie didn't hesitate. She described Dr. Nottingham as an exceptional surgeon with an outstanding success rate. Victor immediately instructed Stephanie to contact the doctor, making it clear that financial cost would not be an issue. After hanging up, Stephanie joked that she had barely started her new position before Genoa City's most powerful businessman expected miracles from her. Nate agreed that Nikki's MRI looked extremely concerning and admitted it might indeed require a miracle. Family gathers at the hospital. Nick later arrived at Nikki's hospital room, only to find the bed empty. Victoria explained that Nikki had been taken for additional testing. When Nick asked how she was holding up, Victoria broke down emotionally and embraced him. She admitted events had moved incredibly fast after Nikki finally sought treatment for her persistent headaches. Doctors were now discussing immediate surgery followed by radiation therapy. The procedures themselves carried significant risks, including possible damage to Nikki's eyesight. Victoria confessed she felt helpless because she had no reassuring answers to give her mother. She tried remaining strong in front of Nikki but privately admitted she was terrified. Nick reassured her that, regardless of everything else happening in his own life, his sole concern right now was Nikki. Soon afterward, Claire and Victor arrived. Claire apologized for informing Victor about Nikki's worsening condition. Victor assured her she had done the right thing. He then shared encouraging news. He believed he had already identified the best surgeon capable of performing Nikki's operation. Nick wanted details about the specialist, while Victoria emphasized that every passing minute mattered. With Nikki's condition rapidly deteriorating, there was no time to waste. Dr. Markham delivers another cruel blow. Back at Dr. Markham's house, Diane noticed that he seemed distracted after ending his phone conversation with Patty. She asked whether something had happened. Dr. Markham looked at her seriously before delivering devastating news. According to him, Diane's worst nightmare had already become reality. He claimed that Patty Williams had moved into the Abbott mansion with Jack's approval. The shocking revelation left Diane believing that Jack had truly abandoned her. Stephanie encourages Nate. Elsewhere at Society, Stephanie waited for a response after leaving a voicemail for Dr. Virginia Nottingham, noting that the renowned surgeon usually returned calls quickly. She then asked Nate how they should proceed while waiting. Nate recommended reviewing Nikki's latest imaging scans to determine whether any additional treatment options remained available. Still, he admitted Dr. Nowling appeared unconvinced that experimental therapies would provide meaningful hope. As Nate discussed possible medical approaches, Stephanie noticed how naturally he slipped back into his former role as a surgeon. She pointed out that simply talking through Nikki's case seemed to energize him. Nate acknowledged his passion for medicine had never disappeared. However, because of the permanent damage to his hand, returning to surgery was no longer possible. Although he remained committed to helping Nikki and supporting the Newman family, he accepted that his role would remain that of an advisor rather than the surgeon performing the operation. Thursday's episode closed with several storylines reaching critical turning points. Nikki's worsening condition left her family desperately hoping Victor could secure the specialist she needed before it was too late. At the same time, Jack raced to rescue Diane while Patty and Dr. Markham tightened their psychological grip on her, making Diane believe that the life she cherished had already been stolen away. One important lesson we can take from this story is that waiting too long to face problems can make them much worse. Nikki ignored her symptoms until they became a medical emergency, reminding us that we should never overlook our health or delay seeking help. At the same time, Diane's story shows how fear, isolation, and manipulation can cloud our judgment, making it essential to seek truth from people we trust rather than believing every negative voice. Finally, Jack's determination to protect the person he loves teaches us that genuine love requires courage, loyalty, and persistence, even when the situation seems impossible. Thanks for watching this videos. Please hit the subscribe button for more updated news.